Competitive inhibition is one of the styles of inhibition that exists, which prevents an enzyme from being able to carry out the regular reaction it normally catalyzes. This is accomplished by having a molecule that looks very similar to its substrate, right? The substrate normally tries to bind to the catalytic site, but in this case, the inhibitor is also going to try to do that same thing. If it binds to the catalytic site, it'll prevent the substrate from being able to bind. Our inhibitor will try to bind to that same catalytic site, preventing the substrate from ever binding to it. This means that a reaction will no longer occur. Now, the next thing to consider is that there is an interesting caveat. If we increase the concentration of our substrate as compared to our inhibitor concentration, then we can actually overcome this inhibition. If we have a high enough concentration of substrate, it'll just be way more likely for our substrate to bind. Now, there's three major things that I want to emphasize, and that is our Vmax, our Kcat, and our Km. Our Vmax and Kcat will actually stay the same because we can outcompete the inhibitor. Now, one thing to consider is because it requires so much more concentration to substrate, suddenly our affinity for that substrate is decreased. This means that our Km is increased, because remember that Km and affinity are inverse of one another, right? So our Km is going to increase, our affinity is going to decrease, our Vmax and Kcat will stay the same. I hope